What do you guys think about the idea of Bijan and the Bears?
I mean, Bijan he's a hell of a running back, and he's a player that just about any team could use. Any team can get a lot of value of. But the issue is the second half of my statement, not hell of, but running back.
Mm-hmm.
It's a deep running back class. You got guys like Devon A-Chain and Zach Charbonnet and guys a little lower down on the board that can really provide a lot of value for you and are a lot cheaper draft capital wise. Now, they're not Bijan. Bijan's really good. But I don't know. If they took Bijan at 9, I'd be very underwhelmed by that personally, just because I think this team has so many more needs. I'm not sure a running back is going to make that big a difference to what the team does this year. And a running back is a win now move. It's for this year and the next 2 years, 3. And the next thing you know, after that, you got to pay him like he was a top 10 pick, because he was.
Right.
And those top 10 pick running backs who do what they're supposed to do tend to be pretty expensive. And I'm just not sure that's where you want your cap allocated. The running back picks it comes down to the long-term strategy for me. And it just doesn't tend to line up very well unless you've got Pat Mahomes and you're drafting Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That made sense. This, I'd be concerned with this pick. It would be fun. I mean, Bijan and Justin Fields running out like that offense would be fun without a doubt. I just think they can make it fun without spending that type of draft capital position.
I like it. Agreed. Juice, your first initial takes on this as well, buddy.
Yeah, when you play Madden, you got those two guys next to it. It's fun, right? At that mesh point when you're running RPOs, it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, Q, you hit the nail right on the head, man. Like, there's so many holes on this that you said it. This is a move you make like if you're like Philadelphia and you were so close to winning the Super Bowl and you need that next just difference maker on offense that can get you over the hump. The Bears need so much that in some crazy way, some of it makes sense. But then again, you win in the trenches. And I think that in a lot of ways, that pick at 9 just doesn't make sense. There's going to be a mess of players, if not, corners or defensive linemen or offensive linemen that are going to be available at that pick that I think are going to serve Justin Fields' development maybe a little bit more down this next year, because we've been talking about keeping him upright. And the other thing is like I know that they didn't sign like a wowing running back in free agency, but they invested a lot of capital in that already over the course of the offseason. I don't see it. Like, why would you bring in a guy like Foreman and then, pick that guy at 9? Like, Bijan's an every down running back, and then you still have Khalil Herbert on the roster. Those are things that, like, it just doesn't make sense at 9. If they were to trade down and get another pick, maybe, and then you're picking maybe like in the teens again, or at 30 and in the teens, maybe. But even then, like, there's just so much to fill that, like Q said, like, this is just not a move that you make now. It's one of those that you make, maybe next year when you have 2 first-round picks and you have extra money to spend, and there's one guy next year that's a difference maker to get you over that hump after seeing Justin Fields take another leap. I think it's just not the time for it. But you got to start to wonder, like, is this part of Poles' plan to, like, just drive up, some assets to, like, trade up or to, muddy the waters more, that maybe there's a trade lurking to be, to trade down later and have another second round pick that, maybe they can pull out of this. Or it could very well be a tactic that, they're sending, some of this information out there so that it does drive the price on some of this moving up stuff for teams that are interested in Bijan in the teens. Now they're kind of announcing, well, we may take him. This is the price. If you got to come up, you're going to have to come up and get him. Just to muddy the waters makes a little sense. And we know that Ryan Poles likes to play some games sometimes.
Yeah, he sure does. And I'm in agreement with, I think, both of you here in the sense of the running back position, you look at the last 10 years of the NFL draft and running backs that do go very high in the first round, it's been a little bit of a crapshoot too in a lot of ways. I think, Q, you mentioned Clyde Edwards-Helaire, been a very underwhelming first round pick as a running back, I think, for a lot of people there in Kansas City. This past season got outplayed by Isaiah Pacheco, who was a 7th round draft choice last year. That's certainly something this team is considering. And then just to your point as well, right? Investing the capital they did in the running back position, albeit not a ton of draft capital. They only invested about $4.5 million at the position, Foreman about 3 of that, and then Travis Homer getting the rest of it. But to your point, Khalil Herbert still on the roster as well. You have 3 very capable running backs now in that backfield, and they probably still might go running back, but probably later in the draft. And a guy that I personally have done a lot of film watching on over the last week and a half, and Q, since the last time you and I talked, is Spears from Tulane. I think he's a very intriguing prospect as well at the running back position that is going to be there later on and is starting to garnish a lot of attention as maybe the next best running back in this class behind Bijan. So I think there's too many good running backs in this draft, in my opinion, for Poles to go out there. To your guys' point, that's a win now move. But furthering on your point here, Juice, about muddying the waters a little bit, this feels like the perfect time to muddy the waters on a player like Bijan Robinson because you have the Eagles sitting at 10. And that is a very win now move that the Eagles could absolutely do. You lose Miles Sanders in free agency to Carolina. You really are effectively down to 2 running backs right now in Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott. That feels like the perfect move, bringing in Bijan, coupling him in with Hurts and Goddard and Smith and Brown on the outside. And all of a sudden, that Eagles offense is even more complete, arguably, than it was last year, because I think Bijan's a better running back than Miles Sanders is. So maybe this is Poles' tactic of saying, look, guys, the Eagles are at 10. We like Bijan, and maybe we will take him. But if you want him, you got to come up and get 9. And we'll move back with you so you can go get that win now piece to complete your offense and potentially steal a guy away from somebody like the Philadelphia Eagles, because we've already heard rumors too over the last 6 days or so that the Bears and Steelers have had conversations about the number 9 pick if Jalen Carter were to slip to that pick. So there's already a lot of noise surrounding the number 9 pick, I think, leading up to the draft. And it very well might just be Ryan Poles trying to drive up the value a little bit on that selection so they can move back yet again and collect on assets, because Q, you and I talked about it ad nauseum over the last handful of shows. And Juice, you and I even touched on it on our last show. This draft is so deep, especially in that 20 to 40 range. I feel like Poles is trying to get maybe 2 picks in that range somehow, some way. And maybe he moves back twice in the first round. How crazy would that be? That would feel like Kevin Costner's pulling all the switches on the draft boards on draft day, because, he's got so much ammunition to move around because they have so many things they need. And you can tell he's the kind of guy that you saw it last year. He turned 2 day 3 picks into like 5. He could absolutely do that again, but now he's got night 1 capital to potentially do it with.